This is really, really good here.
It is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. All the banks are broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They're broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal, and it's been going on for too long.
All right, guys, that is essentially the big problem with banks, traditional banking. Right? And over the weekend, crypto faced one of its biggest stress tests yet. And the results were eye-opening. A massive $1.4 billion hack and a $5 billion bank run within 48 hours. Traditional finance wouldn't survive this for a second. Banks, well, we know what they've done. They'd freeze assets, lock you out of your money, and leave you helpless, and ultimately leave the taxpayer, you, to pay for the mess up. But crypto, it just proved the future. No lockouts, no central authority shutting you down, just a true testament to self-custody, decentralization, and a financial system that actually works when it matters the most. But here is what nobody's talking about. Everyone's focused on the hack, but they're missing the biggest takeaway. There's a crucial lesson in all of this. One you need to implement today, because if you ignore it, you could be the one left holding nothing. And guys, in my 13 years in this space and Rupert's 10 years in this space, we can tell you guys about something that you really want to pay attention to. Subscribe, like, share with all your friends. Very, very important. And buy Bitcoin. Today, guys, I'm breaking that all down, what that really means, and why this event, the Bybit hack, made this industry stronger than ever. This is a really important show, guys. There's a lot to learn. I'll tell you some of my own lessons that I've learned and had to endure as well. Things have happened to me very recently that could have resulted in me losing millions of dollars. But I'm also going to tell you exactly how this Bybit hack was able to take place, which a lot of people don't know the full story. Without further ado, let's get in and talk about this Bybit hack and what really happened. So guys, as you can see, this is the big post, had 4.1 million views, and it says Bybit detected unauthorized activity involving one of our ETH cold wallets. Now this is the kind of scariest part. It's like we've always assumed that cold wallets have been the ultimate safe way of storing crypto, and they are, right? And so to be clear, this was not this was not a vulnerability or an exploit in Bybit's tech infrastructure. This was an extremely sophisticated attack that happened by a group of known actors, I should say. We now know it's North Korea, and an extremely sophisticated attack. And I'll tell you more about what that was toward the end of the video. And toward the end of the video, I'm gonna give you guys some really important tips, and I'm gonna show you guys a couple examples of things that happened to me recently and some other popular crypto YouTubers. And this is some just stuff that is eye-opening, we really should be aware of. So that was the first thing that happened. Now, as you guys can see, the scope and the severity of this hack is enormous. I mean, look at this chart when we compare it to other crypto hacks in time. Of course, if you compare dollar to dollar, the Bybit hack at today's value would be the most. But at the time of the incidents, this was by far the greatest. Over $1.4 billion, far exceeds the biggest one previously, which was the Ronin network, the Axie Infinity bridge. Holly network was also a big one. Hold on, Rupert wants to go do something else. Okay, so huge by comparison. So as we know now, guys, this was North Korea, and they are by far the largest gangsters in the world. Kim Jong-un and his regime, they just can survive off of crime. Well, and they now have $1.5 billion of a strategic Ethereum reserve, essentially, and they seem to be holding it. So to break down the incidents of what happened and why it was such a uniting thing for the industry is Bybit received $172.5 million in loans from various exchanges, institutions to manage customer withdrawals in the past 7 hours. And you can see that they had a helping hand from BitGet, MEXC, and Binance, all tracked on chain to see them being able to help with the ETH, because really it was just the customer's ETH in the cold wallet that was stolen. And so what exchanges have to do today to remain reputable is called a proof of reserves. And they need to have at least 1-to-1 for every deposit of any asset that a customer has ever made. The exchange must hold that in reserves, not like the banking with fractional reserves. They must have 100% of reserves. And as Ben, the founder and CEO of Bybit, says, latest update, Bybit has already fully closed the ETH gap. New audited proof of reserves report will be published very soon to show the Bybit is again back to 100% one-to-one client assets through Merkle Tree. Stay tuned. Merkle Tree is just a cryptographic way to show that an exchange has the reserves that they say they do and that your deposits are in their reserves. So very transparent way. This is an interesting thing. I just want to make a side note here. Like, I've been advocating for ways that the industry can self-regulate. And if there's one good thing that came from the FTX debacle, was that retail made it mandatory, essentially, or they wouldn't use your exchange if you didn't publish proof of reserves through a consensus way called Merkle Tree verification that shows that your exchange has your deposits held safely. And it's just nice to see, Ben from Bybit expresses gratitude. Of course, he should be doing this, but so many people came to help. You can even see my friends over here at Gaff Capital from the Middle East and everyone else that came to support Ben and Bybit in their time of vulnerability. And, it is a time that help is very welcomed. In 2021, Paid Network got hacked when we were on top of the world, when we had a huge valuation, when everyone was talking about us. There was a hack and it was horrendous. And we did a pretty good job. We were able to get up and running and everyone refunded within 7 days. And Ben and Bybit, with the help of everyone, they got everything back up and running within 48 hours. Very, very impressive to see. Super professional. That's why Bybit will continue to remain one of the top exchanges in the world. They also offered, if anyone's interested in really good at white hat hacking, you can see that they have a bounty. So in any funds that are recovered and sent back to Bybit will receive 10% bounty for stolen. So up to $140 million in a bounty for those folks who can help maybe get some of the funds back. So if you guys feel like trying to hack North Korea, go for it. Like, it would be amazing if you did. Just to show you some visualization here, you can see that one of the largest, essentially a run on the bank that we've ever seen. So there was over $5 billion of withdrawals that happened. As you can see, this has been updated in the past 7 days. It says 4.448 billion, but in the past 24 hours, there's been 1.379 billion back deposited as customers feel more confident that the debacle is over. But this was over $5 billion in outflows that had happened in just 1 to 2 days. Now, by contrast, if a bank were to be hacked for 1.4 billion, they would freeze withdrawals, inform the government, set up an inquiry commission, years of investigation, customers standing in queue, branches closed, competitors getting advantage, and of course, ultimately, they'd be bailed out and taxpayers would have to pay for it. Or we'll talk about some other kinds of bank runs that have happened in the past that led to insolvency when there were other forces at act and how that went as well. But as you can see from Bybit, exchange hacked, 1.4 billion, CEO came live, industry united, competitors lend support. 1 hour and everything's back to normal. Industry itself is tracking and freezing the funds as everything's on chain, and 0 withdrawals are pending. This is unity in crypto. I thought this was a very well made post. Now, I do want to express something to you guys though. Ultimately, the most important thing, we'll talk about this a little bit more in the show though, is I'm not advocating in this video to keep a large amount of your funds on exchanges. Fortunate in this case that Bybit has like $20 billion in their treasury and they have way more money than that 1.4 billion. I think it was something like 8% of their, well, we have some stats on that later, but it was like 8% of what they actually have. So very, very wealthy company, and they can afford that $1.4 billion loss. It's not nice, of course, but hey, at least they're going to continue moving on and continue to be profitable by the minute. So as we can see, guys, over here, back in the day, Tucker Carlson, when he was back working for Fox, if you guys remember watching the channel back in the day, we talked about when we had those bank failures. Remember, I think it was like 2 years ago, March 2023. And we had like Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank. But the important part is, when customers showed up at Silicon Valley Bank's branch in Manhattan today to get their deposits back, managers called the police. So we have here is a 1929 style bank run, and that's not a good sign for anybody. Okay, now this is really important here too. Let's watch what David Sachs has to say about these bank runs.
This banking crisis has swept in 5 bank failures. First, there was Silvergate, but everyone dismissed that because it was some weird crypto bank. Then it was SVB, but everyone sort of dismissed it because they said it was based on panicky VCs rather than a systemic problem in the banking system. Then it was Signature Bank, which got seized on Sunday, which I think utterly refuted the idea that this was just a Silicon Valley problem. Then you had First Republic, which would have been the next domino to fall if it wasn't backstopped backstop. And then 5, you had Credit Suisse. Again, avoid an outright failure because it got backstopped by the Swiss government. So we now have 5 banks in roughly a week, and these are not small banks. Credit Suisse is a globally systemically important bank, and the other ones are top 20, top 30 type banks. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in deposits.
Silvergate, SVB, and Signature were all crypto favorable banks. Okay, and I don't know if you guys had heard too, but it was either Cynthia Lummis or Hester Pierce, I don't remember, who was talking about the corruption essentially leading to why the Fed had taken over these banks and how that was disgusting and that they're going to fix it, right? So now we have at least banks being able to participate. However, there's a lot of problems with banks, so that's what we're talking about today, and the contrast between a newer financial system versus the old one.
Deposits. So clearly there's a larger phenomenon going on here. And frankly, it's being caused not by like anything VCs did, because VCs are just depositors. We're just one class of depositors. And depositors are not to blame for what's going on here. What's going on is these banks have huge unrealized losses on their balance sheet. And the losses have come from the sudden spike in interest rates.
So there you go. That's what happened. And now as you can see, this Hermes Lux says, I thought I'd check to see if the Fed updated their fractional reserve lending rate requirement for banks. Nope, no change. Banks are still allowed to lend out 100% of individual deposits, which is crazy because I remember when I was younger, the federal deposits, they had to have 90%. Then I think in the last administration or something like that, they changed it to 100%. So if the bank receives $1 billion in deposits, they can lend out that $1 billion, meaning having zero money in the bank. So if you want to come get it, like it's not there. And so he goes on to saying that, while the bank takes that $1 billion or whatever, they can profit 5 to 30% while paying you a measly, 0.05% to lend them their money. Makes sense. The banks own the Federal Reserve. Not nice. And Gold Silver HQ over here says, what happens when a bank fails? Thanks to the Dodd-Frank Act, you pay the price. The act allows your deposits to be converted into bank assets during a collapse. Your money isn't yours anymore. Not your keys, not your crypto, not your money in your bank. Very important lessons that we have to take away from here. This is why crypto is so important and why self-custody is very important, guys. Very, very important. And if you're new and you don't know what self-custody is and hardware wallets, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's super critical. And as you can see, because banks aren't doing so well, some of them are doing great, but not a lot of them. You can see that some of the banks are starting to really pay attention and want exposure to probably, the best performing asset of my lifetime and your parents' lifetime and all this stuff. You can see Bank of Montreal, they have put in $790 million in MicroStrategy, and National Bank of Canada, $526 million. And this is another thing that you guys should be paying attention to. Very, 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 very important here. So the Vanguard Group, and remember, BlackRock is the public company where we know who are the shareholders, which Vanguard is like the biggest one, and we know who runs it, right? Vanguard is the much more mysterious, my opinion, and I'm pretty sure that like this is not just made up. I'm pretty sure I got this from documentaries and stuff I've watched in the past. But the Vanguard Group is private and predominantly made up of the most richest families in the world who have legacies and dynasties like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, these kind of guys that really helped to establish the Federal Reserve. I have another video that I made several years ago on this channel. If you guys want to watch it, actually, if we can put a link in the description below, it would be really interesting. It's a fun theory on potentially who is Satoshi. It's just a theory, but it has to do with Vanguard Group. And but as you can see here, guys, Vanguard, they're not buying the ETFs, but what they're buying is that the largest shareholder, public shareholder of MicroStrategy, owning currently $4.72 billion. Actually, that was of December 31st, 2024, so probably even more at the moment. I just think that's really interesting. As you can see, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, State Street Group, also big shareholders in MicroStrategy. And why would you be holders of MicroStrategy? Well, because you want exposure to Bitcoin, right? Without necessarily publicly saying that you're bullish on Bitcoin, which a lot of them are, right? But for a long time, Morgan Stanley wasn't. I think State Street was pretty neutral. BlackRock, obviously very public. Vanguard, very quiet. And Vanguard's new CEO saying they won't buy Bitcoin because they believe in assets that produce passive income. Now, another interesting thing this just led me to a little segue I want to think about and tell you guys about. They're working on some of the most important things happening right now in Congress are modifying the ETFs to allow staking. Now, this can be absolutely huge. Why? Well, because we know that we have the Bitcoin ecosystem being developed, and by Bitcoin ecosystem, I mean Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem, where people will be able to secure different blockchains that are being built with Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin yield. Now, and then of course, if you hold Ethereum, and you can just hold it, or you can run a validator and stake it and earn like 4.5% a year. And so I imagine that Vanguard, if this rule is implemented, Vanguard, one of the largest asset managers in the world, might be super giga bullish Ethereum. And that's another reason, actually, maybe you should make a whole video on this. Let me know in the comments below if you want a video on why that could change the game completely for the entire altcoin industry and Ethereum as a whole. That's a huge, huge point, because if you want exposure to an asset that's probably going to increase in value over the next 10 years, 20 years, Ethereum, but you want to be able to stay within your company guidelines of only investing in assets that produce passive income, okay, boom. Now Ethereum makes perfect sense. Interesting, isn't it? So Carl over here says, breaking, institutional money is flowing into Bitcoin ETFs at a record pace, surpassing NASDAQ QQQ inflows for 2025 so far. So what is QQQ? Don't feel bad. I had to look it up myself. I had no idea. QQQ is the NASDAQ 100. So it's the top 100 stocks that are being traded on the NASDAQ. It's an index. And starting really about, it was pretty much neck and neck since the ETFs launched. Look, it's surpassing, neck and neck, surpassing. I mean, basically since the ETFs launch have been surpassing the NASDAQ 100 ETF. Pretty impressive stuff. And Sam wrote a really good post here saying that I dug through the 13F filings, and by my count, there was 1,573 institutions with long exposure to Bitcoin in Q4 2024. That is some bullish adoption. These include banks, hedge funds, registered investment advisors, family offices, endowments, pensions, sovereign wealth funds, and other asset managers. Crazy. Very, very bullish, guys, on Bitcoin here. So if you sold your Bitcoin last year, I mentioned this in this previous show. This is Nick from Coin Bureau again. But guys, don't sell your Bitcoin. Remember, institutions are coming for it. For every Bitcoin sold by an individual, that's a very tragic story, purchased by the rich who are just going to get richer. Pay attention, guys. Don't let the price deter you. It's very, very important. Now, let's take a look at global macro perspective here. And Miles says there's over 560 million people who hold cryptocurrency worldwide, with countries known for their crypto-friendly policy leading the way. While this might sound like a lot, it only represents 6.9% of the world's population. We still have a long way to go for global adoption. See, only 6.9% of the world is currently holding crypto. And you can see countries like the UAE, 1 in 4 over there are holding crypto. And you can see the companies who had a more favorable approach, creating more regulation, encouraging people to come into the country and understand what they can and cannot do with crypto, regulatory guidelines. It's very important for adoption. You can see the United States coming at 15.5% of the United States. And that was a big thing to do with the Trump win, right? Big thing to do at the Bitcoin conference. But we're early, guys. We are so early. Now, let's talk about some lessons to learn from this hack that happened over the weekend. And again, it wasn't from Bybit's infrastructure. It was actually the cold storage solution that they were using, Gnosis Safe, and it wasn't even the Gnosis Safe. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about how that happened in a second. If you guys don't know, this House of Crypto channel, very, very good.
This is an emergency video, and it's one that I really didn't want to make. Yesterday, my computer got hacked. Not only have I lost tens of thousands of dollars, which I'll tell you about in this video and how it all happened, but most importantly for you right now, my Twitter page is not under my control. House of Crypto 3 Twitter page is currently being controlled by hackers, and they are using it to send different crypto coins out there trying to get you to invest.
And so this actually happened to me where I didn't get it taken over, but someone got access to my X account a week or two ago, and I'll show you how they did that. Luckily, they didn't get the sign-in access because I did have two-factor authentication, which was the weirdest part. I was wondering, how the hell is someone posting to my X account when they didn't have login access? Because it's not at all easy to get into my X account. I mean, I've got all the defense things gone. I've got 2FA. They have to, must email me. Something must pop up on my phone. It's very, very hard to get into my X account, and you guys should be doing the same. Make sure that all your accounts are very, very secure. Now, This is what happened to me. So last week or 2 weeks ago, when my X account had unauthorized posts being made, and people started messaging me and saying, Kyle, what the hell's going on? I still luckily had access to it. But what happened, and this is what Alex also says over here. Alex also has a fairly large X following over here. And he says, I just fell for one of the best scams I've seen on X. Here's what you need to know and how to avoid it. So similar story, right? And so what happened to me is I got someone who reached out. They said they were from Cointelegraph and they wanted to talk about doing an interview. And it's similar story. I had something very similar to what happened to Pete from House of Crypto as well. I'll tell you guys about that in a second. But this one was kind of interesting. So the Cointelegraph person wrote me on X and said, hey, can we schedule something? Here's my Google Calendar link. And what happened is X, they shortened the URL so you can't see what it is. See, X automatically shortens links in DMs to a t.co link, which hides the true URL. And you can see this is what it looked like in mine too, right? Kindly schedule a date on our calendar. Our team will reach out with you further details. Calendar.google.com. It looks legit. And because it looks legit, this pops up. And I didn't think too much of it because it looks like Google Calendar. It says by Google Calendar, calendar.google.com. I mean, like, this looks so legit. So why would I even think about it? And then when you read this, which I didn't do, like a dum-dum, but this is, we're learning these lessons to help you guys. So if you just read it, you would be like, what the heck? So authorize Google Calendar to access your account. And then the application will be able to see posts from your timeline, as well as lists and collections, see your X profile information and account settings. What? See accounts you follow, mute and block. What? Follow and unfollow accounts for you. No. Update your profile and account settings, which is actually crazy that they probably tried to lock me out, but they probably couldn't because they didn't have access to my email. Create and delete posts for you, which they were doing, and engage with posts created by others. Create, manage, and delete lists and collections for you, and mute, block, and report accounts for you. I'm just thankful that when it happened to me, I caught it really quickly. And I was trying to figure out what the hell was happening and why this person, every time I deleted the post, they reposted again, and then they started posting on other people's posts, commenting the same spam, talking about some fake airdrop, people trying to get people to go click on a link. Then I just went to all my settings and saw all of the apps that were authorized to interact with my X account. I started deleting access to all of them, including the Google Calendar one, which in my mind at the time kind of felt like maybe that was why, but it just seemed weird because it still looks in your X account like Google Calendar. And then Will from my team sent me this post today to say, oh, okay, that's how it happened. Crazy. I was lucky that they didn't totally wreck my account. They didn't go do a bunch of crazy stuff. I don't know, whatever, right? Like they just tried to get people to click on a scam link, and I was able to reset it. But even after deleting the access from Google Calendar, they still were able to do it. So I still had to go in there and remove all accesses to all apps and everything, and then ultimately reset my password, reset my 2FA, and my account was back to normal. Now, Pete goes into the story telling people about how a similar thing happened, where someone from a reputable large publication reached out and wanted to do an interview about something he was building. This happened to me too, like 3-4 weeks ago. And I hate Zoom. It was also a Zoom link. They used a Zoom link for Pete as well. And I remember getting on the call, and I'm first of all, I hate Zoom. So like, I didn't want to do it on Zoom anyway. I wanted it on Google Meets. But anyway, so they insisted, and then some pop-up happened in Zoom, and it was something weird. So I ignored it, and I asked them to turn on their calendar, their camera, and they wouldn't turn on their camera. And they said, no, I can't. Here, try. They sent me some link and said, here, can you try downloading this so that, because it appears there's something, right? And then I got suspicious, and I was like, no, but I can send you a Google Meet, and we can try on Google. And then they insisted that I would download this link for some reason. I forget the reason now. And then I refused, and then they hung up and deleted. I had a Telegram chat with them. They deleted the Telegram chat, and that was over. But wow, looking back, what a close call to them being able to, because what happened with Pete is he did click something that installed something on his computer that allowed the hackers to steal from him hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least $100,000, and a bunch of NFTs like Bored Apes, Mutant Apes, and things like that. Very, very sad. Sorry, Pete, if you're watching. And really, really close happened to me. So you need to be very aware. So the point is here is that crypto is both a privilege, a miracle that we have it. And from watching the story today, you can see how it has its advantages. The thing is that we need to take responsibility for security of our digital assets, right? And so that's what we need to be. We need to be aware, very, very aware of what's going on. Read everything that comes to you. And let me tell you now how the Bybit cold storage hack happened, because you need to have a hardware wallet. Now, hardware wallets are safe, right? But this attack, I'll tell you how it happened in Bybit in just a second, is incredibly sophisticated. And the benefit for most of you guys watching is that you are not going to be the target of like North Korea, most likely, unless you're 100 millionaire plus probably. Unless they were able to reproduce this in such an efficient manner that they roll this out and just try to do it on a bunch of people. But I'll tell you how this works in a minute. But guys, you must have hardware wallets. You must keep the majority of your assets on hardware wallets, just not whatever you're using to trade. You keep those in your hot wallets or on an exchange. But when you want long-term storage, a majority of your assets, store them on your Ledger or Trezor. I am an affiliate of Ledger. Guys, if you use the link in the description below, you get a big discount on them. And they have some, I used to not like Ledger because the devices were so unusable. They were just like these little sticks, and they're just like horrible and like just like really hard to navigate. They were like this one, I guess. But yeah, you have to click these buttons and navigate, and it just takes forever to do anything. But if you can only afford one of these, it's better than nothing. But these new devices are really, really great. This one's about $300 and it has a touch screen and allows you to navigate much, much easier. So guys, it's imperative that you have a hardware wallet. And again, there's a link in the description below. It would help the channel if you guys use it, and helps you guys stay secure. And of course, the other one is NordVPN, which has threat protection built in. Get it for 2 years. It's like less than $100, and you get 4 extra months included by using my affiliate link in the description below. Well, this is good too. Pix on Chain says, but this isn't the first time this has happened, and it won't be the last. So how do you stay safe? Cold wallets stay cold. If it touches the internet, it's not cold. Never sign blind. Always verify what you're signing, even if the UI looks legit. Spread your risks. Never keep all your funds in one place. Secure your keys, use hardware wallets, no exceptions. Assume you're a target. Lazarus doesn't hack systems, they hack people. Stay paranoid. And that is a big takeaway of this show, is that, again, there was some social engineering going on here. So let me explain to you guys how this Bybit hack happened. So Ben says, Bybit ETH multi-sig cold wallet just made a transfer to our warm wallet about an hour ago. It appears that the specific transaction was must. All the signers saw the must UI, which showed the correct address, and the URL was from @safe. It's the multi-signature, meaning that multiple people need to sign a transaction for it to go through. So at Bybit, they had a Gnosis safe that required, there was 6 authorized signers on it, and 3 had to sign in order for the transaction to go through. I believe the number is 3. I heard that, don't quote me on it for sure, but 3 had to sign for it to go through. However, the signing message was to change the smart contract logic of our ETH cold wallet. This resulted in the hacker to take control of the specific ETH cold wallet. We signed and transferred all ETH in the cold wallet to this unidentified address. Please rest assured that all other cold wallets are secure. All withdrawals are normal. So what does this mean? What is a Musk wallet? This is incredibly sophisticated. So guys, just so you know, so this is what I'm talking about, safe. This is like industry standard here of how folks keep a large amount of money. See, over $100 billion total assets stored and 38 million accounts deployed on all these different chains. This is what most of us in the industry rely on. Now, what a Musk attack is when the attacker is able to recreate identically this exact same front end. So how the attackers got the Bybit associates to use this must interface versus the actual safe.global website. Remember, they thought they were, because when they, I'll tell you how I think they did it. I think what they did is they were able to social engineer one of the representatives at Bybit and take over their account, their WhatsApp or their Telegram account or something. And they sent a request with the link to the other associates that were authorized to sign, incredibly sophisticated. And I'll tell you, like, if one of my executives because we use Safe as well. If they sent me a link and they said, hey, Kyle, we're going to send something over, pay, or we need to take some money out of the cold wallet to pay some bills or whatever the case is, I would probably not think too much, seeing that it came from one of my executives. And I would just click it, especially if I just clicked it and it looked exactly like I've seen a million times before, super familiar. And, we just do this kind of, it's a normal kind of thing that happens in companies, anywhere from once a week to maybe once a day, or, if you're Bybit, maybe it happens a lot more. It happens quite a bit. So it looked identical to this. And when they went to click unauthorize, that's when it messed with the actual Safe's contract logic somehow. And remember, they signed with their own wallets to allow this to happen through the social engineering, and which allowed North Korea to take over that account and transfer all $1.4 billion out into their own accounts. Absolutely mind-boggling. Guys, that's going to wrap it up today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, it would mean a lot to me. If you share this video with your friends so they can stay safe and understand how significant and important crypto really is moving forward. The markets are tough right now, but I'm very bullish on a macro perspective. Bitcoin is super important. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.